Hi, Dr. Rob.
Dr. Tammy, good to see
Dr. Tammy.
you.
That's so funny. So we don't have any questions yet. So you've been recording some podcasts. You've been busy. So any thoughts on? I know you were reaching out about one that had not posted yet, and it was being edited. So
Yes.
thought, yeah. So want to talk about any? So on Sex, Love, and Addiction podcast, Dr. Rob has some new content again. So if you haven't been on there in a while, check them out, including.
Oh, and also, by the way, Apple and Spotify and any place you can find them. Apple is Spotify. I don't know. You can find them everywhere. But let me so I just was very proud, I'll tell you this, Tammy, to do a podcast with two recovering addicts. I realize we have not heard the voices of the people who struggle. And I think it is I don't think it's a very powerful message. You can hear from experts all day long, but when you hear people who have struggled and who have put their marriages back together or been able to heal over the years, that's an amazing experience. And now we are going to record a spouses podcast, and you and I are working on that, which I'm also very, again, the voices of. And that's why we encourage all of you to go to some of the free groups and listen in on what's going on. You don't have to say anything. You don't have to raise your hand. You can cover your camera, but to really hear the voices of people who are in this place, especially if you are as well, you can't put a price on that. No therapist has the same value. We're good, but there's a whole different value in sitting in that room and seeing someone across the room and saying, "Oh, that happened to them too," or I'm struggling with that too. You just feel so much less alone. So anyway, we're bringing those on the podcast. And we got Dr. Stan Tatkin, who did another one, which I loved because it's on conflict. And I'm going to do one on forgiveness. So, well, we've done two on forgiveness. Maybe I'll do some more. So yeah, we got lots of them coming up. I
Well,
think,
I've got you scheduled to do one with Lucy Beresford. I'm sure I'm slaughtering the pronunciation out of the UK. Love her. Super excited about that. And Monique Thompson. So you've got some in the pipeline that I'm really excited to hear too. So
and the
stay
one, by
tuned.
the way, with Lucy that we're recording, it's about whether couples should or shouldn't stay together, or yeah, which is something we really need to
Yes.
talk about.
Well, and if you just decide to stay together, like, like some people will put pressure on you and shame you, and like the whole thing is, I'm excited about that one too. So anyway,
Good,
we've got some questions, Dr. Rob.
good. I am ready.
Betrayed partner married 42 years. Full therapeutic disclosure was November 2021, and SA husband is doing all the recommended recovery work, including a CSAP. He works separately with a coach to figure out his arousal template, and all he can come up with is attractive women. This sounds a little vague to me, and I'd like to get your opinion. Thanks.
Well, let me first tell everyone what an arousal template is. An arousal template is the basic sort of blueprint for what turns you on. You know, we could have, I don't know, I could show you a template for what clothes I like and what clothes I don't like, and what colors I like, and you could see a template of, of colors. I mean, there are many ways to make an image of something that someone is attracted to or interested in. And some my template of colors and design would be very different than Tammy's. We'd have different colors, different. So we sit down and we do this with our sexuality, and we call it an arousal template. And I can tell you that men turn me on. That's my thing, part of my arousal. And Tammy, you too. um but so orientation is part of it. I can tell you that I like people who are tall, I can people who are slim. I like people who are this age. I like people who enjoy this kind of sexuality. And then it also is about I like this kind of sex. I like uh, I like I don't know what I'm trying. I like to not talk. I like to talk a lot. I like to be the person on this role or that role. I like toys or I don't like toys. All of that are also part of the arousal. Basically, it's what turns you on, and it's not just one thing. It might be here's my primary and here's my secondary. So if you asked me, what is my arousal template, I would say basically I'm turned on by attractive men. That is my arousal template. There's nothing particular. I'm pretty vanilla. There's not, I mean, God, I'm talking about myself, but there's no particular act I'm really turned on by. I'm not into toys. I just want to be close to someone and make love. I mean, really, that is true. And, at this point, it's very much about the person I love and I'm married to. But nonetheless, the person I'm married to is a tall, attractive man with brown eyes. And, so bottom line about all that, and I was trying to sort of educate, is that I think your arousal template can be attractive women. Now, if he says, you could certainly say attractive women within 10 years of my age. Or in other words, he could get more detailed, attractive women with larger breasts, or attractive women who, who are this size, or, but in a general way, I think that's probably true. Is it as, what's the word for it? Is as detailed as you might want? Maybe not. I don't need, by the way, I don't know why you would need a coach for that. I gotta say, like, no offense, but you can do that with your therapist. You can do that with your CSET. It's really just writing up a, I like blue, I like green, I like red, I like yellow, I like large, I like small. I mean, that's all it is. Now people's arousal templates can include children. People's arousal templates can include, abuse. I mean, there are, that is without judgment, that's what turns them on. And so, I can't say in what circumstances or what kind of women or what they look like, or, but there's nothing wrong with saying that's what I'm into. I'd agree with that. So I'm not sure, Tammy, I'm not sure why the person's asking the
That's
question.
what I was going to ask. I was going to say, I'm curious what's behind the question. And it feels like I want to know from a safety. So I'll use, if it's a redhead, if redheads turn him on, as part of his arousal template, then when you see a redhead, are you going to be extra on the radar? So, or have your, spidey sense going? So to me, it feels like you're safe. You're looking for safety, understandably, and you're looking to identify like this specific, so that that can be, that you can be on the watch for that, versus this is like all women practically, because, and like Dr. Rob said, like there's all kinds of visuals out there, and elder erotica, and there's all kinds of stuff out there. So it isn't just a certain type of thing, and it can be people of different ages and stuff. But I think I'm curious what's behind that question for you. And then it might be, I'm wondering, because for myself, whatever it is, I'm looking to understand this and decide how important it is. Because at some point he's doing this right stuff. Like what I hear is, he's doing the right stuff. He's working with a CSET. He's doing things to help him heal, so that there can be a repair for your relationship. So that was kind of where I went with it, is, what is behind it too.
And Tammy, I just want to say you really caught me up, and I think you're right with the idea of safety seeking, because there can also be, well, is my husband into men? Maybe
Yeah.
he's not really into women, and maybe is my husband, should I worry about my children? Or the 16-year-old babysitter who comes over. I mean, there are safety seeking reasons why you would really want to know that. And there's nothing wrong with this answer. It's just, it is a little vague, but why don't you ask him? He'll probably tell you. What else have we got?
Can you define the following terms and how they are used in the field? Addiction, character flaw, entitlement disorder, integrity abuse.
Wow. I think any one of those I could spend half a day talking about. Um, and again, Tammy, I'm curious what motivates this particular set of questions. But how do you suggest answering this? I could use your feedback just in
Well,
2 seconds.
so I often go to the ASAM definition of addiction, and that is, so American Society of Addiction Medicine. I apologize, I start throwing letters around. American Society of Addiction Medicine. They have, this is what addiction is according to them, diagnosed, and it does include behaviors. But to me, any addiction is a maladaptive coping mechanism. We didn't learn the right way to do life with life's terms, so we use our maladaptive coping mechanism to cope. So,
And we
and
can put the
whatever form it
ASAM
takes. Go ahead.
link in the
Yeah,
chat
I
so
will
you
do
can
that.
find.
Yeah. So character flaw, I mean, that to me feels like, in 12-step we call character defects. That's a pretty common thing. But here's the deal for me. What I learned was, my character defects can also be my strengths if I learn to use them in the right way. So,
Mhm,
I can be stubborn, well, that can serve me well in certain situations and really not well in other ways.
mhm.
That's just one character thing. So, I mean, it kind of depends, with everything I have found. If I look at it, I can change the lens. Instead of saying it's a character flaw, it's it can be a warning sign. I need to be careful, and how am I using this? So entitlement disorder, I don't know what that is. Can you elaborate on that one?
Well, I actually really appreciate your putting in the ASAM definition because,
I'm
you know,
getting it. Yeah.
it's not a difficult, it's not like a hoity-toity fancy, doctor thing. It's pretty clear to understand. And it's better than saying doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. It's a little vague. I was thinking about character flaws. Um, I think a character flaw is an extreme of a naturally occurring characteristic. So you can be, a little bit of a jealous person. You really wonder, and you can be extremely jealous and cause all kinds of problems. I can be a little self-focused, or I can be incredibly narcissistic. And so I'm not sure that um, everything that, I can be a little angry sometimes, or I can throw things in rage. So, I don't think that character flaws are necessarily something that are unusual and that we all have character types, we have character challenges, but I think when it ends up at when it gets to the point of causing people pain, causing myself pain, taking me away from my goals, um, creating very difficult circumstances, I think, then, or if it leads to my addiction, I think that's when we see of it more as a flaw. Um, yeah, and I like the word flaw somehow because to me, I think of beautiful jewelry and beautiful stones, and the more flawed they are, the less they're worth, but they're still pretty. Um, there is nothing called entitlement disorder. That doesn't exist. Entitlement is a part of being an addict, and it's a narcissistic flaw. Entitlement simply means I deserve more than I'm getting. That's really what it means. Marriage isn't working, so I deserve to go do this. Dinner wasn't great, so I deserve to eat a chocolate cake. I didn't, Thanksgiving was difficult, so I deserve to go to the bar and get drunk. It is a sense of I'm not getting what I need and I'm not getting what I want. And so it doesn't matter what the outcome is, I'm going to get what I want. And it's usually used in addiction to justify, or it's sort of a form of denial, which is, well, my wife won't have sex with me and she's gained 30 pounds, whatever. So I deserve, because my sex life isn't very good, to go over here and go do this. And it's really a way of blaming other situations for what we want. Um, so entitlement is a narcissistic trait, and it is also part of addiction. There is no disorder that goes along with that word. Um, integrity abuse. I mean, again, that's not a formal term, but we named our treatment center Seeking Integrity for a reason. And it literally has to do with the word integrity, because when something is disintegrated, it's in little pieces, right? It's all broken into little pieces. And addicts will say, well, I have this part of my life over here, and I have that part of my life over here. And we'll say you've compartmentalized your life. So these people see this you, and those people see that you, and your family doesn't know about this, but your sex workers know about that. And so that is all disintegrated. And people who are troubled, addicts in particular, live disintegrated lives, which is exhausting, by the way. Which lie do I keep? Who do I need to be in this situation? All of that. And the healing of that is to have integrity. And what that really means, in a literal term, is to be one person. You know me as I am. And you don't know me that well, but if you knew that I took a shower this morning, you wouldn't necessarily want to see me take the shower, but you wouldn't be shocked that I took a shower. If I got off of this call and I went and started hiring sex workers, that would be completely out of my integrity, because it doesn't have anything to do with how I present myself in the world. And it would be something over here that is disintegrated from how I present myself to everyone else. Addicts need to have integrity. They need to take all these walls down between the different parts of the way they live and put them all together and be real, for the right, for the good, for the bad. You know, I don't have integrity because I don't want you to get upset with me is not a good way to go in a relationship. I'd rather have integrity and tell you something that's upsetting, and at least I am being real, and you don't find out late. Dishonesty, a perfect example of being disintegrated. I know this is true. I'm not telling you they're not integrated. So those are some very good terms that we use in the addiction world and in the psychology world. but I'd be really curious why someone asked them. But anyway, Tammy, do you want to add anything to that?
Well, I added more to the chat. I found some more deeper down that was a little elaboration on the ASAM definition. They used to have a bigger paragraph that I really like because it, talked about, and they may have it on their website. I just didn't take the time to go through it, but it talked about behavioral and everything else. So this feels like the short-term definition of it. But, integrity abuse, I don't know what that is either, but I know that not being in integrity is we're not congruent. We're compartmentalized, we're lying to ourselves and others and everything else. And in recovery, one of our goals, even if it's not your immediate goal because you're just trying to stop the problems, is that we learn to become congruent. What I say is what I mean. What I
Right.
say I'm going to do is what I do. And I clean up my messes. If I've stepped on somebody's toes, I'm going to sure work on making amends and moving forward in a different way. So it is so much better than living in the chaos and pain. So
Right.
but yeah, I know what addiction is, I know what character defects are, but the entitlement, absolutely, narcissism, narcissistic traits, all of those things are traits that go with addiction because we don't know how to live. We are very much me because we have to hang
Right.
on to our addiction at all costs, and it costs us a lot. Okay, Dr. Rob, the next one. My SA partner seems offended when I say trust his actions, not his words, but one of my love languages is words of affection or affirmation. I'm sorry. I want him to reassure me, but I need his actions to follow. Sometimes they do, sometimes not. He struggles with sobriety and community, but is doing something for recovery most often daily. Thanks.
So Tammy, what is the question in
So
here,
the
do you think?
question is if her love language is words
Or his?
and
I don't know what Jules
no
supposed to say. It
no
could be a man or woman.
no
Oh, his,
I,
yeah, it could be man or woman. Anyway, go ahead.
let's go with hers because I
Okay.
think I'm right on that one. If she is saying, my language is words, and this, her husband in his struggles is unable to put the actions behind the words, then the words are hollow. And how do you align those? How do you, how, I don't know, because it's like, how can he show up differently? And to me, that's just, working harder. I guess the one thing I want to point out is seems offended. So that I think is your perception of his reaction. And I would ask him, and I would say, you seem offended when I ask about this, when I say I trust your actions, not your words. I'm curious about that. Can you tell me more? Then he can use his words to talk about that aspect of it too. But and it is disconcerting when when you're looking for something and your addict is not in a place where he can deliver that. But I bet he gave you lots of pretty words, when he was really, really acting out. And so at some
Right.
point, I understand that's your love language, but maybe a shift of that's my love language and we will get there. But for the moment, I just need to see the action. So maybe just giving some space to, I'm going to hang on to, I want the words and you deserve the words if that's your love language. And he's not there yet. So visualize that it can happen and he's got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, I want to say that I spend time with the clients at Seeking Integrity, and I talk to them as well online. And today was an online day, and one of the questions came up, reminded me of this, which is I'm so used to depending on my spouse. They're the primary person I go to when I'm having a bad day, when I'm upset about something, when this and that. That's who I've always gone to. We've been together for all this time. Well, now you can't. If you're the addict, now your spouse doesn't give a hoot about making you feel better. Now they don't trust what you say. Now you don't feel safe with them. So it's kind of like that. It's not really time yet for you to turn to each other. He's struggling with sobriety. He's struggling to build community. He is not in recovery yet. I don't care if he's, raking leaves and helping dogs and going to meetings but I don't know what the daily tasks are, but he should be getting sober. I mean, that is not a faraway dream. It's my expectation within a few sessions, if not one, when I was doing outpatient. So um, I think you have, first of all, I have every right to say the only thing I can trust is your actions, because we say it over and over and over again. Your lips are moving, but you're not, you're lying. So I would agree with you that he's lied a million times. How could you trust his words? And I would tell him that you don't want to hear those words anymore. But at the same time, the nurturing words, the loving words, the validating words, this is part of your grief, that you can't get that from him now. You might want it, you might desire it, just like I want to turn to someone that I was my partner and say, let me tell you what's going on with me, but I can't turn to them now as much as I want to. I have to turn to others. And this may be a need that may not get met. You may have to feel lonely and long for that and be so sad about how you're not getting it, um, because that's the nature of the crisis that you're in. So to me, it's a loss that you're going to have to tolerate. And as Tammy said, when trust is restored, I hope that can come back for both of you. But honestly, I don't care how much love language you get from him. I wouldn't believe it anyway. Would say, wow, he knows how to make me feel better. And boy, he says all the right things. But then what he's doing is struggling with sobriety and community. So, um, and I would put less focus on he's doing something for recovery every day. That sounds more like he would say to you, well, I'm doing something for recovery every day. My response would be,
Mm.
well, how about getting a couple of days of sobriety or a couple of weeks or a couple of months? How about if you struggle with community, going more often? So um, I love what you're asking for. I just don't think at this moment it's likely to happen. It's more likely to hurt you than it is to help you. So,
And we have a treatment program for men who are struggling like this. I mean, that's we work on helping them become congruent. Okay, next question, Dr. Rob. If a person develops a kink during their addiction, how do you know it's healthy? Should kinks be an inner circle until you become sober first and explore more? That's a big
okay,
question.
yeah, that's a big question. So first of all, let's talk about what kink is. In fact, that is really something I think deserves a lookup because what does the word kink mean? Tammy, do you want to do that one?
I can do that.
So it has to do with an eight. I don't even want to say. I don't want to say anything negative about people who are into kink or fetishes. I will say that it's a form of sexual behavior that is different than I don't want to say the norm. I would say that I don't even know how to say this. And I'm a sex therapist. Tammy, what does it say about what is kink
So,
basically?
kinkiness is the use of non-conventional sexual practices,
Right.
concepts, or fantasies. So it's
Okay.
it opposite of straight and vanilla.
Right. So kink is, I'm into leather, I'm into lace. I like to sniff feet. I'm into feet, foot fetishism. Kink is something that people play with occasionally. Fetishes are the same thing. They tend to be more dedicated. So in a fetish, it might be a consistent thing that I'm into, which is, feet. Whereas if it's kink, it's more occasional. I think that's a different way to say it, but I don't develop kink during addiction. Sorry. And by the way, kink is a part of my sexual arousal template. I'm into this, I'm into that. And that doesn't change if you're over 10, maybe 12. So if he had or she had this interest, they've always had this interest. Whether they admit it or not, admitted it to themselves or not, it was there. And I wrote a whole thing about this. I don't know where the article went or writing about porn, but I've worked with a lot of people who say, I never knew I was turned on by this. And then I started looking at the porn and there it was. And it got me really excited. And I realized, oh my God, I don't want to be into this. And then they might say, well, the porn made me do it. If I just put down that porn, it's going to go away. I don't think it works that way. I think the way it works is sometimes porn can make you aware, bring to your conscious awareness things that you weren't entirely sure or didn't really know about. And then there it is, and you can't ignore it. So I don't think you develop kink, and I don't think that it is. How do I say this? I can't speak to whether it should be someone's sobriety or not. Um, I maybe that's the only thing that turns them on. I think those are questions that really need to be resolved with a sponsor, in a treatment program, with a therapist. But because I do agree that you need to learn how to have more intimate sex, but some people are only aroused when there's certain activities going on and they're not interested at all. So I think this is a person by person. I guess the only thing that I don't get is, should kink be basic inner circle means avoided until you become sober first? Yeah, I think anything sexual should be avoided until you're sober first. I don't think it's just kink. It's you need to stop having crazy sexual behavior and you need to have integrity, and you need to have some time of not acting out at all. And if that means you don't have sex for a while, then you don't have sex for a while. But I don't think anything is I think everything is off of the, what do you say it? Off the table until this person really has a stable sense of being honest and knowing themselves. And yeah, and that doesn't happen in your addiction. So I don't think you develop it. I do think you need to be sober for a while before you explore your sexuality, but there's nothing wrong with having it. Tammy, anything you want to?
No, I have to hit. Okay. No, well, it did say, it's a, oh shoot, it was a colloquial term. Kink is a colloquial term for this. So it's not a diagnosis within, you know what I mean? It's a colloquial term for non-normative sexual behavior. So that's what,
Well, I wouldn't even say none. I don't like the word
that's
normative.
what
I
it
would say
says. Yeah.
atypical,
Yeah. And
or
that's
not,
what, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
because, in my world, and what is normal? I don't know.
Right.
Is
Oh, I
is
understand that. So
homosexuality
yeah.
normal? So it's more, and I always love this word. This came from Dr. Seeley, Tammy, healthy. Is it healthy
I
for me? Is
agree.
it
Yes.
healthy for
Yeah.
you? That's the word I really like. So let's
Yes.
keep going. However you
Okay,
want to.
back to the first question about the arousal template. He had an arousal with our 9-year-old granddaughter when she was wearing a bikini. He also did a search about his old high school flame. I'm concerned his arousal template is trending way too young. So here you said he said attractive women. A 9-year-old is not a woman, so that is that is a problem. So
I I don't know enough about this situation to say anything. I really don't. I can say that it is normative for a man to be attracted to an older adolescent. You've got a 17-year-old, a 16-year-old who is developed fully, man or woman. We are going to be attracted to that because we think about fertility and we find that attractive. There's a reason why we like youth, biological reasons, but 9 is not an adult. And when you say high school flame, are you talking about someone who's 14? Are you talking about someone who was 17?
well,
I, I,
they've been
I don't,
married 42 years, so I would
yeah.
say it's somebody in their 60s. So
But I will tell you that just because someone is looking at something doesn't mean that they're going to do it. It doesn't mean that it's even a primary part of what turns them on. I don't know this person well enough to know anything. I do appreciate, however, that he's honest. At least, how would you found out he felt arousal over your granddaughter unless he told you or told somebody? I don't know about the high school flame part. But also, going with what Tammy says, I think this is a real conversation the two of you need to have. What is this about? This is what I'm afraid of. Let's go see a therapist and talk about it, whatever that is. I don't think there are enough answers to this question that we don't have enough information to answer this question.
And I'm going to advocate for the 9-year-old. This is one of those where whatever his arousal template is, make sure your granddaughter is
Yeah,
safe. Kids are
of
safe. So
course.
yeah, well, not of course because I hear things. Yeah,
Sorry.
okay. I am the betrayed partner, and approximately 2.5 weeks ago, my partner told me about his problem with porn, cam girl, sexting, etc., which has led to $18,000 of debt. We have been dating just over a year. So far, we have both attended multiple support groups for ourselves. He is getting a referral to therapy Friday from a primary care physician. He has shared his 3 circles with me, and we are listening to multiple podcasts, different ones for each of us, and using literature to guide how we move forward until we can see our respective therapists. We are taking 10 days physically apart, but checking in daily with updates on where we are at and having time to play a game. He's been going 110% at this so far, which I appreciate. But also, since my trust is so fragile, I have a lot of fears. He is very good at compartmentalizing. What advice do you have for other pieces that we should consider and how to keep this momentum going?
Well, um, I was thinking about how to talk about this, and I'll give you an example from my world. A long time ago, I got 2 puppies and I brought them home. And they were brother and sister puppies. And they used to fight a little bit when they were little puppies, and they'd have this, but they would really get into it sometimes and, nip at each other and all that stuff. By the time they were adolescent puppies or maybe 1 year old, there was some serious fighting going on. There were fights, they were rolling around. We had to separate them some, and we hired, of course, because we live in LA, a animal behaviorist. Don't make
I'm not making
We
fun.
hired an
I
animal behaviorist, and well, it's so LA, right? And they spent, and they're good, by the way. This person was, she came, she sat in the house, she watched everything happen. She said, well, here's the deal. How long do the two of you want to live in this situation? Because if you want to keep both of these puppies, this is going to be your life for the next 12 years until they're gone. And we looked at each other like, but we love them both, blah, blah, blah. But our sanity was more important. And we did not want to live with this. We have to put them in two different rooms. We have to, make sure that when everyone else is over but us, they look out for this. And it wasn't good for us and it wasn't good for them. So we gave one of the puppies away, which was heartbreaking. By the way, I have to say that when we gave away the girl puppy, I thought her brother would be upset. He was like, nope, now it's mine. Good riddance to her. But anyway, you understand my point, which is you've been dating for a year. You guys are already into therapy and information and referrals and literature and physical apart. And this is the rest of your relationship. This is living with an addict. It may not be this acute. It may not be this immediate. It may not be this early in the process, but this is what your future is. And this is not what your future may be in 30 years, but for the next period of time. So you've been dating a year, and I get fully how amazing and positive that is. And I really get how we tend to just look at the good parts. Tammy's often heard me say I've said about like female love addicts who will say, oh, yes, he's doing heroin. And yes, he's still married to his ex-wife and living with her, but he's such a great guy. I'm like, yeah, but he's living with his ex-wife in her house and he's still using heroin. We don't see some of the flaws sometimes because we're so caught up in the love and the excitement and that early crush, but that will fade. And you'll be sitting with someone who has all these problems. And is this really what you want? It may be, but you're not just getting involved with this person. You're getting involved with you're getting involved with all of someone's family. And so my response is I think you need to consider, is this the relationship I want to have for the rest of my life? And do I want to be worried always about where he is, what he's doing? Because, being one of our spouses, God bless you all, but you do worry. You worry all the time. You don't stop worrying after a year or two. If we're late 3 years later, you're like, oh, he's doing it again. This is what your future is. And so you are early enough to say, I love you, I care about you, but I don't necessarily want to get in deeper in this situation. And um, so my first thought, but Tammy, I say things rather strongly, is run. You're going to end up being very unhappy. You're already telling us that. So, Tammy, do you have feedback? Maybe
I
kinder or
do. Yeah, when his primary care physician is referring him to a therapist, I'm skeptical because I love my primary care physician and he can refer me, to a dermatologist for, a cancer check. He can refer me to different things that I need. But they rarely have the mental health. He's probably referring to a generalist mental health professional. That will not be what he needs. He needs a specialist. And it's 2.5 weeks. And I'm honestly 100% with Dr. Rob in this because like this is challenging and he's got it'll take him a couple of years if he's really doing all of the work to be able to show you that things have changed. Recovery, we were talking a little bit ago, Dr. Rob was talking about the person who has said he's not even in recovery. Abstinence is just not doing the problematic behaviors. Recovery takes shifting everything, like Dr. Rob was talking about. We become, we have integrity. We learn to do things differently. He's got, financial issues, and he's got so much. And it's a lot, and you can't save him. I know you're going like, oh, but my love can help him, and it can't. You have zero control, over him. This predated you by a long shot. These issues usually are from under age 10. So it's a lot, and you get to stay. You get to pick. I'm not, you get to decide, but do it eyes wide open, not, oh, well, if he just, if he can get 6 months, of not acting out, he's all better. No, it is a lifetime journey. We have to, I know people who have been, on the sobriety journey for years or decades and quit doing the work. And guess what? The next thing they know, they've relapsed and they're kind of going, what happened? So it literally is a lifelong journey. We get to grow in that, but he hasn't even strung together, abstinence yet. So be very cautious. I'm glad you're here. I wonder if he's here. I wondered about that. What is he really doing that is focused on this, to get help? Because he's got a lot. We actually, when clients come to our residential treatment, we look at their money issues associated with their, addiction acting out, including under earning, but also overspending on that. So, and with all due respect, I know this is what you know, and there's what you don't know yet, because there's always more. And I'm really sorry, but it's really true. We only tell you what we have to tell you or what you find out.
I wanted to add two more things to this. Number one, you've been dating a year, over a year, and you've known for 2.5 weeks. Why didn't you know 6 months ago? Why were you invited to get deeper into this relationship, time, and get more connected to this person who didn't tell you that they had this kind of a problem? If I had cancer, I'd probably tell you within a reasonable couple of months, or at least, maybe sooner, because I would want you to know that I would want to think, well, you have a choice whether you want to be with me or not. And you need to know these things about me. And he waited this long to tell you. That is a red flag. The other thing is, if I were to be with this person, I had children, I would wonder every day about my kid's college fund. How much has come out of it? I would worry every day about, what money is going somewhere else that I don't know about. And because believe me, the amount of money that a lot of the clients I work with spend is, I say you could have tithed 10%. You could have given it to people who are needful. You could have put it in a kid's college fund. $18,000 could save somebody's life. So, and by the way, there's more. As Tammy said, it's not 18, it's 28. Or so I think you have a lot of questions you need to ask yourself about what you're doing and why you're doing it. And is this the right situation for you at the moment? For me, it would be a no.
And you get to pick. So,
And I'm glad you're
okay.
asking.
Yeah. I'm the addict with a history of highly repressive religious trauma. I've been living high quality sobriety since leaving our treatment program earlier, but now I'm getting divorced. I'm continuing to see just how much my sobriety was based on her, and I know I need to completely start over and create a recovery that is mine alone. How do I begin to sort out the difference between my addictive behaviors that could have been or could be healthy, but have been compulsive specifically because they were not allowed and healthy sexuality as an individual, all without threatening my recovery and sobriety? It seems the obvious answer is don't take on changes that big in the middle of a divorce. But as I continue separating from her, I have an increasingly claustrophobic sense of being stuck in someone else's cage and told to sit quietly. And I know that's a precursor to a relapse for me. I'm so glad you're here and asking these questions rather than going, oh, I
Acting them
relapsed
out.
because of these.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So thank you. So
Mm-hmm.
anyway, so
Well,
thoughts,
why don't you
Dr.
start,
Rob?
Tammy? Because you're kind of in this already. So why don't you go ahead?
Well, yeah, because I was thinking, so yeah, I choose recovery for me. And, so I think it's being very intentional. And, I'm glad you're here. I hope you're really leaning into your support and talking about these, specific issues. What my analogy for this, Dr. Rob told his puppy story. So COVID sucked for me. Anytime I felt claustrophobic with that, but I had to learn that I had choices. My therapist, bless her heart, I love her, said, you have choices, you just have fewer. And I was like, oh, okay. So rather than feeling stuck like you're in someone else's, I would invite
Right.
you to journal about, what are my choices? Why would I, what do I have to choose from? And how can I start to expand my circle? Not make any major things, but start to expand my circle in ways that are meaningful to me. Your outer circle, I tell people all the time, I hope your outer circle, healthy behaviors continue to get bigger as because in addiction, we're stuck in this little narrow thing, but can you look at different things, that would fill your soul, would connect you with other people in a healthy way, not sexuality. You're still in the middle of the divorce. I would, give that all space and time, do the grief work that you need to do, figure out who you are as a person outside of the relationship. So in candor, I was married, I was divorced, I'm remarried, happily remarried for decades now, but I took time. I was absolutely intentional about, I'm going to take this period of time, and it was, it was a while, not a huge amount of time, but I gave myself that space to figure out who I was, because I had lost myself in the previous relationship. And so I needed to figure out who I was, because I was like, if I don't know who I am, how can anybody else ever really know who I am? So that was a gift that I gave myself, and ultimately, my husband, because he actually, when we met, I was, the more true version of me, the more congruent version of me. So I would give yourself that space. Thank you for being here. And yeah, we've got alumni meetings for you. I hope you're joining those as well. So, Dr. Rob,
Well, I'm going to play therapist for a moment,
please.
because I see something that is so clear to me that I can't not say it. You said, I'm an addict with a history of highly repressive religious trauma. And then you said, I have a claustrophobic sense of being stuck in someone else's cage. Well, an extremely repressive religious environment is going to be, for some people sexually, like they are stuck in someone else's cage. And so I would really be curious if you could look at the relationship between these. I don't know. And I don't know whose cage, I don't know whose cage it is. Are you talking about your sponsor, who put you in this cage, and what does it mean? I assume the cage is your sobriety or your choices around sex. But I think this is a great opportunity to look at what that cage feels like and
Mm,
why, if it is a precursor for relapse, it's a good thing to know more about. If it's a precursor for relapse, instead of relapsing, why don't you write about, look at what this brings up for you? That's why we relapse, because we're having emotional feelings in part that we don't know how to tolerate. Well, here you are in a situation that probably feels a lot like one that went on a lot earlier. And now you're being told where to have sex and when to have sex and when not. And that would really remind me of what I grew up with. So I think there's some meat to pick on this bone and some real psychological work that you could do, therapy work, to understand the relationship between those things. And it's interesting, Tammy said know yourself, and I agree with you that it's so funny. The word that came up for me is freedom. Like, can you have freedom from these feelings of being trapped in the way that you do? And quite honestly, I wonder, and this is just a wonder, how much of this feeling of being trapped and controlled contributed to your relationship problems, or has contributed to your addiction. So I think you're in a place with every opportunity to look at this and explore this. And this is what addicts don't get. Our desire to act out is information. It doesn't mean go act out. It means I'm disturbed. I need something. Something's wrong. And so something leads to acting out. That's a really good thing to learn about and look at, not say, oh, I shouldn't do this or shouldn't go there because it makes me want to act out. What is it about? Don't act out and take some time to understand what it is about that that's stirring all this stuff up for you. So to me, this is a real opportunity. And as Tammy said, to grow and learn about yourself, but also to see how this trap feeling plays into your relationships. Because here you are, you're not even going to be in the relationship and you feel trapped. So anyway, we should keep going.
yes. Yeah, that was good information.
Good
Okay.
therapy.
So yeah, my my porn addiction boyfriend has recovery for an
Has
for
been recovering
over
for over a year.
over a year. Yeah.
Right.
Sorry, I was getting stuck on that,
Right.
including a few therapy sessions here and there, which he will be continuing. However, the years of watching porn from age 11 to recovery didn't just prevent him from feeling attraction to real life partners, me included, and causing porn induced erectile dysfunction. It also means that his idea of sex has been ruined. Sex has been so focused on him for so long that my own sexual interests are unexplored. We both feel lost and frustrated that he's worked hard to recover and still can't repair our sex life. Will our sex life ever recover? I wonder if that's even possible. Yeah, it is. So,
Well,
so
there are a number of books that have been written. Actually, I think Katahakis has a new one, Tammy. But there are a number of books that have been written about post-betrayal, recovering your sexuality, finding your sexuality. So, and for couples in particular. So I do think, I know this sounds trite, but you can learn. You're not the only people who are in this position. You're not the only folks who are probably on here who are wondering, gee, we're at this point, but how do we discover, recover, uncover our shared sexuality? I think that's very, very frequent. Plus, you have your own lack of trust and other issues that are going on for you. But, part of what comes up for me as a sexologist is, well, how do you define sex? One of the things that I think of is that if he's uncomfortable learning about your sexuality, well, could he hold you while you masturbate? Could he rub your shoulders? I mean, are there ways that you can engage physically and sensually? Sex is not just penetrative, this or that, put something in here. Sex, that might be part of it, but a lot of it, and could you show him what your sexual interests are? Could you have him perform some of that? I mean, this is not about thinking about things, it's about doing things. And it may not be about, and it all is not going about from 0 to 100. It's about beginning to find things you enjoy and actually saying, oops, that was too much. Or, I got distracted. Or, I've had men who are being sexual with a partner and they start to think about something else and they just stop and say, you know what? I started to drift away. Great. You both learned something. You don't yell at him. You say, well, thank you for, let's pull back a little bit. That makes me uncomfortable. You talk about it. So this is a process. And I don't think, by the way, that our idea of sex is ruined. I think that we adapt to living a certain way, and now there needs to be a different kind of adaptation to living a different way. I also think that sex addicts by nature are avoidant of intimacy. And when you're with someone you love for a long time and really connected to them, one of the most powerful forms of intimacy is sex. And intimacy means being incredibly vulnerable. Porn requires no vulnerability whatsoever. I don't even have the person talking back to me, no less looking at me or touching me or, evaluating me or, any of those things. Now this is a real life thing. And maybe the porn allowed him to enjoy his sexuality without having to deal with things that are scary for him. So what I don't hear in here is that maybe it's the opposite. Maybe it's that he is afraid or struggles, not because of the porn, because this is his struggle, is intimacy. So maybe you can teach him. Is he willing to learn? Maybe we can help you find a therapist. And Tammy, Tami, at seekingintegrity.com. Tammy makes referrals all the time, depends on where you live, to people who understand both the addictive piece and the growing your healthy sexuality piece. So I think you're asking a great question. I'm just not sure the conclusions you've reached are where things really are. There's a long way to go before I reach a conclusion that sex has been ruined for him. He may need to learn how to have it.
Yeah, and I put in the chat, the Porn Addiction 101 online work group starts on the 5th of this month. And what I read is someone who stopped the problematic behavior, presumably, you give him the benefit of the doubt. He's gone to a few therapy sessions over a year, not enough. You mentioned that he was looking at porn at age 11. So for however much period of time, he's gone to a few therapy sessions, but he hasn't really done, I don't hear he's going to 12 step. We've got PA, PAA, he's doing all of this other work. I hear he stopped the problematic behavior and he's gone to a few therapy sessions, and you don't even say with a qualified therapist. So what I hear is he's abstinent and he needs to learn how to be in recovery. And the Porn Addiction 101, our drop-in groups, 12-step program, there's lots of resources, free, low cost, that would help him get from where he is. Just like Dr. Rob said, it's, this is, an intimacy disorder. I'm scared of being vulnerable. And how do I work on those issues so that I can show up differently? The other thing is communicate. Like, Dr. Rob said, can you show him? Can you tell him? If it's like, we don't talk about sex, we just do it. That's, that's part of being vulnerable, is we have to talk about even the uncomfortable things. But I hear often from partners of porn addicts or sex addicts that watch a lot of porn that they feel like they're part of the porn. And you said he feels like it's all about him. And so, and the porn-induced erectile dysfunction, go back to sensate, focus, touch. Can you do other things that are not all about, oh, got to worry about my, erectile dysfunction. So there's so much, and it feels like he's so early in the process. I'm glad you're here. Lots of resources. There's a betrayed partner work group starting again, and not too long from now. So lots of resources for you. Both of you keep coming back. It absolutely can change in a good way. My betrayed partner, sober, recovering sex addict, is sober.
Wait, I wanted to weigh in on that.
Oh, you did. You started.
About the sexnomnia? No, I don't think I did.
No, we haven't.
Isn't that what you're talking about? We didn't
No,
get there
I
yet.
was,
Oh, okay, sorry.
no.
I was already moving on. Go ahead.
My betrayed partner, sober recovering sex addict, is sober from physical sex since January and inner circle since May. He's having erotic dreams every night, touching himself, making noises and sexual movements, etc. He is in dead sleep, can't wake him up. He doesn't remember in the morning. He's never remembered dreams. It's so triggering for me. He feels horrible, is emphatic. You don't touch the buttons. You just move the question.
Sorry.
Don't
Sorry.
touch the buttons. Shoot.
Okay. It's like I'm 7.
Don't
Um,
touch the buttons.
okay.
Okay. He feels horrible, is emphatic
Mhm.
to me, I think empathetic, but doesn't know what to do. Is it common? What can we do? It wakes me up and I cry, I can't sleep. Okay, so then you typed in something and then you moved it
Right.
to
So
answered.
I looked it up. Um, I think I frustrated Tammy a little bit. I didn't mean to.
Yes,
Sorry
I
about
was in
that.
the middle of a question.
I didn't realize it. I honestly didn't know I was going to do that, so I
I know.
apologize.
Continue.
Um,
Thank you.
so I just wanted to, I was just talking about, I run a consultation or supervision group for therapists. And every week we sit down on Tuesday mornings, Tammy and I, 11 o'clock Pacific time, and we meet with therapists. And by the way, if they're qualified, they're always welcome to write Tammy if they want to be involved in the group and learn and listen. It's for therapists only. It's actually a locked group. No one can come in without the password. But one of the questions that has come up is is sexomnia, which is what it's called, a real thing? And it is a sleep disorder. It's considered a sleep disorder. Now, I don't know. This could be trauma related. This could be, one of the issues that happens with traumatized children. They learn to self-soothe and touch themselves to feel better in traumatic experience. I don't know. But it also can be a medical issue, as it says it's considered a kind of parasomnia, cool word, which involves abnormal behaviors during sleep. So I, in some ways, so in the therapy world, here's a good way to say it. Well, if we're well taught and we know what we're doing, we're told when someone comes in with an issue, make sure it's not health related first. They're depressed. Don't start working on depression. Make sure that they don't have some pituitary problem, some glandular, some other issue. So you send them to the doctor and they have to describe their symptoms. To me, this is something that really might need to be handled in a sleep study. This is something you would need a professional for. So just because someone is a sex addict or because they have trauma doesn't necessarily mean that this comes out of that. I mean, there's not enough information about this. Um, I also, and then I think that is a really good route to go, because also if there's something else underneath this, like it's really not true and it's really a lie and he's really doing this to, I don't know, whatever it is between the two of you, because it makes you feel bad and maybe it's a way to make you feel, I don't know. But start with a sleep study. If he says, I don't want to do that and I don't want, well, that'll give you some information if he doesn't want to deal with it or talk about it. But I think I would start with, is there a medical issue here? And how do I begin to find answers for it? And I think what they do in these cases is do a sleep study. So there you go.
Yeah, I think that would be, and for you, the I can
Mhm.
imagine how difficult. So I don't know if there's a separate bedroom. Go get some sleep. Go to a different room and
Right.
sleep, because we need sleep. So if this is keeping you awake every night, worrying about him, and so go get a medical exam for him. Get some sleep for you.
Let
Okay.
me add that one of the things I
Uh-huh.
ask men to do, sometimes I hear from addicts, oh, I don't know what happened. I just found out that I was touching myself in the middle of the night. And so I'll tell them, well, buy 2 pair of long pajamas, put one on, tie the string really tight, then put the other one on backwards and tie that one really tight. And by the time if you're going to be sexual, by the time you get that thing off, you're going to be awake. So, there are ways to make sure that it isn't a voluntary act. I'm sure he isn't, if he has sextomnia, he's not able to undo knots. So it can be simple behavior thing like that. And by the way, Tammy, my fear if I were her or him was, well, if I let them go in the other bedroom, who knows what they're going to do at night? And the
Well,
truth,
she added that this started after May when he stopped masturbating. So, yeah, I don't know.
I don't know.
And I understand there's fear, but you laying
I
in
need
bed
to
next
sleep.
to him, it isn't changing anything, and you need sleep. So those are, like at some point it's like, I'm going in a different room. I'm going to take care of me. I'm going to, put my little lights on, etc. So, okay. We are also not moving forward physically beyond hugs, holding hands, etc. for quite some time, but I also worry about when it would be best to reintegrate sex. This feels like it's tied to another one, but it says anonymous, so I don't know. Um, so I think that would be talk to your qualified professionals. And Dr. Rob says all the time, don't have sex with somebody you don't trust. So, at some point, what do you trust? And I had put in the chat, Bill and Ginger Burkott did a podcast with Dr. Rob about sexual reintegration and their sensate focused touch. So there's lots of ways to integrate back, and it's communicate. Nothing you do can make him act out. That's part of the deal. So it's really about what feels right for you. Holding hands, all of those things, fine. And then, do you feel like you can try another layer or something? Okay. And you know what, if you're going, yeah, not yet, it's okay.
I just want to say that, Tammy, I went to Amazon and I put in the word sex after betrayal. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 books, 8 books, 9 books. Of course, there are 9 different books on how couples can restore their sexuality after betrayal. And so, this is an area that might involve some reading. Something you probably both should read together, or maybe get an audiobook and listen to it together. But this is an explored topic that you can gain more information about. And by the way, as a betrayed partner, I'd be in the betrayed partners group asking questions like that.
Okay, next question. Betrayed partner, married 34 years. First D-Day 8 years ago. I wasn't informed about SA or betrayal trauma until a year ago when I started my journey of healing. I moved out 7 months ago after years of ongoing affair and betrayal. How do I stay emotionally regulated, staying in my healing path when dealing with the acting out flux of an essay that tells me and adult kids he is trying, not it was emotionally intolerable in the same house even after in-house separation as betrayal continued. Limited contact now, only as necessary.
Why don't you just grab it, Tammy?
Well, yeah, it's one of those. It's like, how do you say emotionally regulate? You make sure you've got your safe posse of people, and and I'm sorry he's telling the kids, and I'm sorry that they know and all that, but what do you need to do for you? You said limited contact now, only as necessary. Okay, so when he, yes, you're going to get a little zing, and what are you going to do when you get a little zing? You're going to go do the healthy things with the people that you need to vent to regulate with. What are your mindfulness? What are the things that connect you? I was talking on a webinar not too long before 7-8 breathing. The Navy SEALs do that. It's good for you. It takes 2 minutes. I even can do that, So it's one of those things where, what can you do? There's no perfect way. You're not going to be all zen and, so what do you need to do to take care of yourself in that moment? That's what you do. But I'm sorry, because trying, I'm not good at the, all of those, books, but there is do or not do. There is no try. And I think that is true. It's like, you either do it or or you don't. But, in 12-step, it's half measures availed us nothing. So we stood at a determining point. We have to make a decision. And the decision is either we're all in, or we're going to straddle a picket fence or barbed wire fence that's pretty uncomfortable. So.
Hey, Tammy, what does the person mean by AO flux? I don't know what AO.
Acting out flux.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Yeah.
So the most disturbing thing to me here is what Tammy mentioned earlier about your children. This feels extremely manipulative. Sometimes I will have an angry or hurt spouse, and I don't think it's a good thing, but they'll say, I'm so mad at him that I'm going to tell our kids. Okay, well, that's not a good thing for many, many reasons, and I don't want to go into it now. But why is he talking to your adult kids about his sex life, about mom and dad's problems? This is when I worry about trying to win them over, trying to make sure that they're on his side and not your side, asking them to pick sides. And why would you talk to your children about your sex life? About your recovery? This has nothing to do with his children. Your children need to go out living their lives, enjoying their lives, and knowing that you two are struggling with some things and you'll work through it or you won't. But this whole idea of talking to them, and if they find out, you don't continue talking about it, you put a plug in it. So something feels, and it would keep me completely dysregulated if I had my kids saying, well, dad said this, or we found out that, or that would be a boundary for me, a very clear boundary, especially if he's not really in recovery. So yeah, this sounds like it's getting sicker and sicker instead of better and better. Um, and I'm glad that you're on your journey of healing, and I'm glad that you're separated, because this sounds like a situation that could really help you lose your mind. That's what I'm thinking.
Yes. Okay. So I'm going to cancel that. We are done, and it is
Okay.
after 6 o'clock. So
Okay.
thank you so much, Dr. Rob.
Thanks,
Thanks for all the great
Tammy.
questions, everybody.
We'll be
And I
back.
will see you soon. All right. Bye-bye, everybody.